and paying cess to Kiambu construction, paying to Kiambu County and not Nairobi. This is thanks to lack of a market in the constituency, forcing them to go to a nearby Kiambu County. But now they are set to get a modern 244 million market after Mutuini Ward MCA Martin Mbugua intervened. The land, which had been grabbed in 1995, was reclaimed last year with the support of the community and the Nairobi County government. And the people of Mutuini Mbugua said had for some years pleaded for a market for previous county government without success. And of course, if you look at it, there is that photo, there is some pictorial there, governor, a photo of Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi. And of course, down there, there's also that headline, 4 billion markets to be built for Kiambu traders. And also that's a related story, and there's more to probably look into on that particular edition. Let's look at something else still on the page 10. Clear the debts you owe KEMSA, Gachagua tells governors. And of course that is on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has asked county government to pay KEMSA, to pay Kenya Medical Supply Agency, KEMSA. Gachagua told counties not to expect favors from the agency when they owe it huge debts. He asked the governors who inherited debts from their predecessors to clear them to enable the agency to serve the counties effectively. That is still on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. And we want to look at something else, and that is on page 12 of the Standard newspaper. The page 12 of Standard newspaper. How police chief King'ori faced tall orders as First Lady stormed Nation Center to protest. That's on page 12 of the Daily, page 12 of the Standard newspaper. While besides his son, who was battling a cancer in hospital, he was summoned to accompany Mama Lucy, who was headed to Media House. And then King'ori escaped assassination bid by the Whisker when gunmen sprayed him with bullets as he drove into the Nairobi home, to his Nairobi home one night. And of course, there is more details. Let's look at that. During his lifetime and career, former Assistant Inspector General of Police Zakaria King'ori battles and Zakaria King'ori Mwangi fought many battles, and in death he would easily be eulogized as a gallant soldier. In the dead of night on May 2nd, 2005, the firstborn son of Nairobi Police Chief Kingori lay on his hospital bed and on life support while clinching on the remaining straws of his life. Top oncologist at the Nairobi hospital had ruled out any remote chances for the survival of the high school boy. However, Kingori and his family prayed and waited for the miracle to happen. They refused to give up on the son. They rejected at the idea of planning his burial. And of course, in quote, as Kingori family prepares to bury their loved one, a great man has fallen, and I have lost a dear friend of close to 30 years. That is a former editor, Stephen Mururi. And of course, that's more details of that particular story on the same page of the Standard newspaper. You can grab and just to find out whatever is happening. And now we want to switch gears and look at some business activities on the daily People Daily, where a biotech firm, that is on page 16 of the People Daily, page 16 of People Daily. Chocolate lovers face price hike on rising cocoa costs. And of course, soaring cocoa prices are already filtering through to consumers and squeezing major chocolate makers as Valentine's Day buying surge approaches. Global cocoa plants have hit a fresh record high as dry weather hurts a crop in West Africa. Cocoa prices on the New York commodities market reached a new all-time high, $5,872, which is equivalent to 933,884 Kenya shillings a ton on Thursday. A cost of the key ingredient for making chocolate has now roughly doubled since the start of last year. And there's more story on that, including featuring prices, global deficit, and many more. You can grab that and get more stories. As always, let's look at some market watch. But before that, there is also a story of Barclays and funding for new oil fields. Lender eventually gives into mounting pressure to curb its support for the fossil fuel industry. The banking giant also says it will restrict lending to energy business that plan to expand their fossil fuel production. Barclays is the major lender to the fossil fuel industry, but has been coming under mounting pressure to curb the support for the sector. Still on page 13 of the Daily. And of course, there's also that the Nairobi Security Exchange, and the sector agriculture, and the drop and the increase in the market. And also there is the automobiles and accessories, banking, and of course CBK rates, where central bank rates is at 13%. On the 6th was 13% on 6th February 2024. Interbank rate was at 13.23 by 12th of February, that was yesterday. CBK discount window was 17.00 by 6th of Feb. And of course, a 91-day T-bill was at 16.504 by 12th of February. And of course, inflation rate 6.85 January, lending rates 14.63 by December 2023. And of course, there is saving rates 4.24 December 2023. And of course, deposit rate at 10.1 December 2023. And then KBRRR at 8.9 by 20. That was by 27th of July 2016. Let's look at some exchange rate, and let's look at some exchange rate here. By February 12th, 2024, Norwegian krona was at 15.09 shillings. And of course, same date, 12th, Singaporean dollar was trading at 118.58. And still on the 12th Feb, Dan krona was trading at 23.08. And of course, the same date, actually it's just by yesterday, this is how the currency was trading. The Kenyan shillings was trading against other currency. The Indian rupee which was trading at 1.9218. Kenyan shilling is trading at 172.06 against the euros. And Saudi Arabian, Saudi Riyal at 42.54. And of course, Canadian dollar at 118. At Rwandan franc at 7.8. There's a drop there. And of course, at South African rand at 8.40. At STG pound at 201. At Hong Kong dollar 20 shillings 0.40. At Australian dollar trading at 104.08. East Africa dirham at 43. And of course, Tanzania at 15. Chinese yuan 22. US dollar 159. And Japanese yen 106. Japanese yen 106. And of course, there is also the Ugandan, which has also dropped by a big margin to 24. And of course, there is a Chinese yuan at 22. And of course, South African rand again. And there is also the euro at 172. That is the dollar. How the Kenyan shilling is doing against other currencies. There is a drop. There is an increase. And of course, moving on to something else, something just to mention is Kakuzi invest 250 million in ESG amid pressure. That's something to look into. 2. And of course, you can grab a copy and look for more details on that. And of course, we want to look at something else on the Standard newspaper. But again, like I mentioned, you can find time and grab your own copy and go look for more details for those related stories, and just to, go deeper. And of course, there's something quite interesting on the financial standards or financial standards. Let's look at financial standard before moving on to something else. But this is just mentions. We won't go into details. On page 17 is financial standard, and something to look at. Let's go direct to page 18. Dashed hopes Kenyans to wait longer for tax cut as inflation bites. And that is under financial standard on the Standard Daily. Cabinet recently passed a new policy that outlines a plan to increase tax ratio to GDP. And of course, like I mentioned, this is just highlights, so you can grab a copy and find more details. On page 19 is Adventurers Farm eyes 2 billion revenue from increased Africa travel. Intrepid MD says there are tourists willing to pay more to experience some different from traditional holidays. That is again on page 19. And like I mentioned, it's just these are just highlights. You can grab a copy and get more details. Looming job cuts threatens millions, or as more farms see red. That is on page 20 of the Daily. A response in CBK market survey cited challenges such as the high cost of living and weak shilling. That is on page 20 of the Daily. And we can find more details under that. President William Ruto's plan to create more jobs faces a bleak future, with more than half of Kenyan farms warning of a business showdown this year, which could lead to a fresh round of job losses. Additionally, according to the just published Central Bank of Kenya Market Participations Survey, which polls businesses for in 10 companies reckon the worsening business on the back of higher tax and regulatory levies burden, coupled with slow demand from consumers, could actually hurt their operation. And that is on page 20 of the Standard newspaper. There's quite a lot to read on that. You can grab a copy and find more details. Just to mention, export-led growth is the leasing keyword to Kenyan currency depreciation. page 21 of the Standard newspaper. You get more details. How high will interest rate go? We've just looked at some financial report, and especially on the how Kenya shilling is trading against other currency, and now how high will interest rates go, the lending rates, and of course there is that on page 22. But let's see more details on this just really quick. It was last expected that the Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, would hike the interest again in 2 months, but they did. CBK Governor Kamau Thuge added a twist to it. He said the shilling has gone beyond its equilibrium rate. Fascinating because equilibrium exchange rate is known. What does the shock rise in rates mean to the Kenyan economy and to Wanjiku? How high will the rate go? That is on page 22 of the People Daily. Something else, and I quote, some observers think CBK read government is overrushing monetary policy tools compared with fiscal policy, and that is on page 22 of the Daily. You can grab a copy and just find more details on that, like I mentioned. And of course, we also want to look at something else, and let's rush over to People Daily and look at some sporting activities. But before that, on page 26, let's have a look at the cartoon there, which is a bit attractive. Life is like that. And then there's a doctor, there's someone there saying, "Doctor, I have lost my will to live." And then he proceeds and saying, "Except on the weekends." So that particular cartoon really, it speaks a lot. And now let's move on to sports on the page 27 of the Daily, People Daily. A stitch in time here. And there was that amazing event by KCB when they were flagging off there's a KCB Group CEO Paul Russo flags off a rally car at the Kencom House yesterday. Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba rides with the Africa Rally champion Karan Patel during the announcement. And of course, there's that photo there, quite interesting. And you can get more details on that on the page 27 of the PD. And of course, something else to look into on page 27 of the PD. Kenya sprinter Omanyala shatters on a record at Paris Indoor Athletics Meet. Kenyan sprinter Ferdinand Omanyala continued with his brilliant start to the season after he lowered his own 60 meters national record for the third time in a year, and the second time in a week during the Paris indoor meeting on a Sunday. That is on page 27 of the PD. And again, still under athletics, Kelvin Kiptum would have had an incredible career, Mo Farah says. And of course, that is the London Marathon. A marathon world record holder Kevin Kiptum was a special talent who would have gone on to have an incredible career, says Samo Farah. And Kiptum, 24 years, died in a car accident alongside his coach Gervals in his native Kenyan on a Sunday. And of course, he broke Eliud Kipchoge's world record last year and was set to compete at the Summer's Olympic in Paris. And there's more detail on that. Rally driver, still on page 27, rally driver Takamoto aims at replicate Sweden 2023 speed. And that is on page 27. And Tokomoto Katsuta is hoping to replicate the speed he managed on last year's Rally Sweden, but without the drama which accompanied his outing in the FIA World Rally. And more details on that is on page 27 of the Daily. Let's move on to something else. And of course, just to mention some highlights really quick, let's have some quick mentions here. So there's a Spanish La Liga, Barcelona Yamal, and of course Barcelona 3, Granada 3, and there's the story that we've just talked about the Toyota driver Tokamoto aims to replicate 2023's Sweden speed. And of course, a Champions League resumes. UEFA Champions League's fixed fixtures today. FC Copenhagen, RB Leipzig. Of course, FC Copenhagen versus Man City at 11 p.m. and RB Leipzig versus Real Madrid at the same time. And when on Wednesday, Lazio versus Bayern Munich at 11 p.m. and of course PSG versus Real Sociedad again at 11 p.m. And let's look at something else on page 29 of the Daily Nyamweya 6 Remedy. And of course, selected FKFPL results is also alongside, which you can check. KCB 1, KK Homeboys 2, and of course there's those results you can probably find on page 29 of People of the PD. And of course, Stray Lion A defeat Cambis A to maintain flawless run in NPCA. That is still on the page 29 of the Daily. Something to look into. Netball body picks 30 players for continental showpiece. And of course, you can grab that story. More than 200 girls showed up for a 2-day trial event at Ulinzi Sports Complex in Nairobi over the weekend for the national netball ladies team selection as Kenya gears up for the African Region World Youth Cup qualifiers to be held in Pretoria, South Africa from March 14th, 2024. Get a copy of the PD on page 29 to grab more details on that particular story. Something to look into. World mourns the GOAT. And that is on page 30 and 31. And it's all about Kelvin Kiptum after fatal night accident. So that is page 30 and 31 is all about Kiptum. You can grab a copy and find more details. And of course, there is the last page of the PD. There is a celebration there. And of course, Equatorial Guinea, Emilio Nsue wins a Puma Golden Boots Award. And a festive night in Abidjan after Cote d'Ivoire's astounding AFCON 2023 win against odds. And of course, there is Elephantic victors. That is Ivory Coast won the AFCON the hard way. That is on the last page of the People Daily. And of course, those was just highlights of the stories. You can grab a copy and go through it page after page and get more details of those story and know whatever is happening around you. Let's look at some highlights on the Standard newspaper on sporting activity. What to expect as a Champion League's returns. And that is on page 37 of the Standard newspaper. Manchester City, Arsenal, Manchester City, Arsenal, Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham all return. And of course, the Champions League round of 16 takes place between February 3rd and March 13. And of course, there's more story on page 37 of the Standard newspaper. The Champions League's last 16 first leg dates. There is also that you can grab and see the fixture. For example, FC Copenhagen faces Manchester City today at 11 p.m. So same update that is on the People Daily. Over 200 girls show up for U21 national netball team trials. And of course, we've also seen that update on the PD. So that's a related story. Moving on to something else. World Mons marathoner says athlete was yet to hit his prime. That is on page 38. That's one of the stories that was making headline on the Standard newspaper. And of course, KCB Bank, 195 million Kenyan shillings with 2024 Safari Rally. That is on page 39 of the Standard newspaper. It's a story, a related story, where KCB Bank flagged off the Safari Rally yesterday at Kencom, and annual corporate golf tournament sponsored by Standard Group. And of course, more details you can get on that. And on to the last page, that is page 40 of the Standard. Ivory Coast relief after winning Cup of Nations. And there's jubilant and that there's pictorials there of Ivory Coast players in jubilation, and you can grab that particular, you can grab the dailies and probably just find more details onto that. And of course, we are glad that you've just kept us a company from 7:30 a.m. till now. We are glad that you've been our amazing viewer, and of course that's where we are wrapping up morning edition. And of course there's a lot to talk about tomorrow, just to tell you whatever is happening across. So always keep it a tradition of catching up with us every morning, Monday to Friday. And of course Friday is that time where we probably entertain you with some light moments that have wrapped the week. So you need to catch up that particular segment. And of course, we appreciate you for keeping us a company. And Morning Express comes back tomorrow with many more. Thanks for keeping us company. Keep tweeting at Ongara Samson 1. And of course at Increst Television. And my direct call number or SMS is 0115080220, and the hashtag is always a morning edition. Morning edition comes back tomorrow with many. Good day, good luck, and God bless.
As a child of God, you are not supposed